Imagine you've been married for 7 years, you have a shared mortgage, 2 kids, and what feels like a really comfortable, secure life.
Right. The bills are on auto pay, the cars are running, everything seems totally fine.
Exactly. The vacations are booked. And then, out of nowhere, your phone rings on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Never a good time for a surprise call.
No, definitely not. It's a debt collector. And in this terrifying, 3-minute phone call, you discover that your husband has $34,000 in secret, unsecured debt.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The pension contribution stopped 2 years ago. The credit cards are totally maxed out.
Hmm.
Your entire financial reality, the life you thought you were living, is just a mirage.
And you had absolutely no idea.
None. And not because you're, uneducated or foolish, but simply because you never asked.
It's a devastating scenario, and it really happens with alarming frequency. For so long, money has been treated as this conversation that belongs somewhere else, with someone else.
Yeah, it feels too uncomfortable to bring up with a partner, or too private for friends, right?
Exactly, and entirely too complicated for family. So the default just becomes silence.
You stay quiet, assuming everything is fine, right up until the exact moment the floor basically falls out from under you.
Which brings us to what we're looking at today.
Yes, today we are taking a deep dive into an incredible piece of writing. We've got excerpts from Chapter 5 of The Mistakes Women Make that are holding them back.
It's a really eye-opening text.
It really is. Our mission today is to look directly at this silence around money. We are going to explore why it exists, the staggering compounding cost of maintaining it, and, how you can strategically and bravely break it.
Because breaking it is essential.
Absolutely. Okay, let's unpack this, because reading through this material, what really strikes me isn't just the financial loss, it's the psychological trap that creates it.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that the underlying research emphasizes this is rarely about individual foolishness. It is about deep-seated cultural conditioning.
Like how we're raised to think about money.
Exactly. We've managed to dress up financial silence as modesty or politeness or even like romance.
Oh, the romance aspect is huge.
Right. We tell ourselves it's the proper thing to do. But this manufactured politeness is incredibly expensive. We are talking about women being left systematically vulnerable during the absolute most critical transitions of their lives.
Right. Let's look at that cultural conditioning, because it's so deeply ingrained in how we operate. The concept presented in the source is comfortable ignorance.
Comfortable ignorance, yes.
And I want you, listening right now, to just analyze your own upbringing for a second. Think about the dinner table when you were a kid.
That's a great exercise.
Was household cash flow discussed openly? Did your parents talk about interest rates and debt management and salary negotiations?
Probably not.
Right. Or was money this hushed adults-only topic that happened behind a closed office door?
For the vast majority of people, especially women, it was definitely the latter. You were likely socialized to believe that asking about someone's salary was intrinsically rude.
Or that sharing your own income was just tacky?
Exactly. We were handed this narrative that saying, oh, we don't discuss money, was a mark of good breeding.
Yeah, good manners.
But those aren't just quaint rules of etiquette. They are behavioral restrictors. They are early messages that fundamentally shape our relationship with agency and, power.
And there's this extra layer of conditioning for women, this toxic, lingering expectation from society that financial management is somehow inherently masculine.
Or that aggressively pursuing financial knowledge makes you look greedy.
Precisely. These cultural narratives quietly conspire to keep women on the outside of their own financial lives.
Yeah,
And the data the author provides bears this out in a terrifying way.
it really does.
The women who find themselves most financially devastated by a relationship breakdown, like a divorce, a sudden death, or a partner's financial mismanagement, are not necessarily the women with low incomes.
Which feels entirely counterintuitive, right? You would think vulnerability is directly tied to a lack of earning power.
You would think so, but it's not.
No, the most devastated demographics are the women who were completely disconnected from the financial decision-making process in their own homes.
Regardless of their household income.
Exactly. Earning power means very little if you have zero visibility into where the money is actually going. Financial awareness isn't just empowerment. It is literal protection.
But wait, let me push back on this for a second, because I can hear people arguing this point right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Isn't letting your partner handle the finances just a sign of a trusting relationship? We divide labor in households all the time just to survive the week.
Yeah.
Like I cook, you clean, I handle the school run, you handle the investment. It's like letting someone else drive the car so you can relax and enjoy the scenery. Why does everyone need to have their hands on the wheel?
It's a really common defense, but what you are describing isn't a division of labor.
What is it then?
The author specifically calls this financial blindness dressed up as trust. To use your analogy, it's not just letting someone else drive the car so you can look at the scenery. It's sleeping in the back seat while the driver refuses to look at the fuel gauge.
Oh, wow. That's a scary image.
You can love your partner completely and still insist on knowing the absolute, unvarnished truth of your shared financial life. In fact, if you value your future, you really must.
Because transparency is key.
Right. Refusing transparency isn't a partner protecting you from the stress of household bills. It is a partner protecting themselves from accountability. And make no mistake, a demand for financial secrecy in a relationship is a glaring red flag, not just a quirky personality trait.
That is such a sharp distinction. Sleeping in the back seat while ignoring the fuel gauge. Because if that cultural conditioning lulls us to sleep, the eventual crash is just catastrophic.
Completely catastrophic.
Which brings us back to the woman from the start of our deep dive. Let's look at the actual mechanics of that crash through Full Lake's story.
Yes, Full Lake's situation perfectly illustrates the hidden, compounding mechanics of financial silence.
So, Full Lake and her husband have been married for 9 years. They are both high earners. She categorizes their existence as a comfortable life.
Right, on the surface, everything looked great.
But underneath that veneer of upper middle class stability, the reality was a cascading failure. What strikes me about Full Lake's story isn't just the sheer volume of personal debt. It's the collateral damage to their future that was happening completely in the dark.
Exactly. The sheer scope of what she didn't know is staggering. Her husband had quietly racked up $34,000 in personal debt across various loans and credit cards.
And it wasn't just the debt.
No, he was regularly dipping into a $12,000 overdraft facility on their joint account just to float their lifestyle.
And he didn't just borrow money. He basically cannibalized their future to fund his current cash flow. I mean, he had completely paused his pension contributions 2 years prior without even mentioning this.
Years just stopped.
Plus, his business was dodging taxes, accruing massive penalties. He essentially robbed their retirement and invited the government to financially penalize them, all while just smiling over dinner.
And this highlights the central behavioral economics problem of hiding debt that the source talks about. It triggers a shame spiral.
How so?
Well, a partner gets in a little bit of trouble, they feel ashamed, so they try to fix it privately. But without the friction of accountability, the bad decisions compound. The sunk cost fallacy kicks in.
Right. Well, here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Full Lake didn't uncover this through a mutual audit or a sudden tearful confession. The silence only broke because the system forced it to.
The debt collector.
Exactly. A debt collector called her mobile phone. Imagine the absolute shock of having a stranger explain to you on a Tuesday afternoon that your financial foundation is essentially a crater.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the core mechanism at play here is that financial silence doesn't actually hide problems, it just prevents solutions.
Oh, that's incredibly true.
Every single month that a cash flow issue or a debt burden goes undiscussed, it doesn't remain static, it metastasizes. The interest grows, the penalties compound, the options for recovery shrink.
So the silence didn't protect their relationship or their lifestyle at all. It just guaranteed the maximum possible damage when reality finally hit.
Precisely. And who carries the greatest practical and emotional burden when that silence shatters? Almost always, it's the partner who was kept in the dark because they have zero time to adjust.
You just can't strategize around a problem you're actively pretending doesn't exist.
Exactly. You're completely blindsided.
Okay, so the sheer cost of this silence is clear. It's ruinous. The question then becomes, where exactly are these blind spots? Because silence is a pretty broad concept.
It is. We need to name the specific arenas where we are keeping quiet.
Right. The material breaks this down into 5 crucial, forbidden conversations that women actively avoid. Let's walk through the psychology of these, because naming the avoidance is really the only way to dismantle it.
Good plan. So the first one happens right inside the house. The what do we actually owe conversation with a partner.
This is the Full Lake scenario. We're talking about individuals who have a vague atmospheric sense that we're doing fine.
But if you lock them in a room and ask them to write down their household's actual net worth, they'd be completely guessing.
They don't know the outstanding principal on the mortgage. They don't know the APR on the car loans. and they have no idea what liquidity they actually have in an emergency.
You simply cannot claim to be an equal partner in your own life if you don't understand the basic math that is funding it.
It's so true. And that reluctance to look at the baseline at home extends directly into the workplace. Which brings us to the second and arguably most socially terrifying conversation.
Oh, yes. But with your peers.
The how much do you earn conversation.
Ah, the salary transparency revolution. This is an absolutely critical piece of the puzzle, according to the text.
It really is. We avoid talking about salary because, as we discussed, we've been conditioned to view it as tacky or confrontational.
But when you look at the history of corporate HR policies, organizations have aggressively weaponized that social discomfort for decades.
Right, because when a company holds all the salary data, they control the market rate.
By convincing employees that sharing compensation details is unprofessional, corporations effectively tricked the workforce into policing their own wage suppression.
That information asymmetry is basically the cornerstone of the gender pay gap. I mean, when you have no idea what the colleague at the next desk is earning, you are negotiating in a vacuum.
You don't even know you're being underpaid. And this raises an important question. Who really benefits from your rigid adherence to workplace politeness?
The employer does, not
Yeah.
you. And the source points out something here that I think is going to shock a lot of people listening who have been handed NDAs or sternly worded memos from HR.
Yes, there is a brilliant piece of leverage people overlook here: the legal reality.
Right.
The book notes that in many jurisdictions, corporate policies banning salary discussions are entirely unenforceable, if not outright illegal.
Wait, really?
Yes. In the UK, the Equality Act actively protects employees discussing pay to find out if there's discrimination. And in the US, the National Labor Relations Act protects the rights of most private sector employees to discuss their wages.
So if an HR department implies that discussing your salary is a fireable offense, they're often relying on intimidation, not the actual law.
Exactly. Data is leverage. You don't need to stand on a desk and blast your W-2 to the whole office, but you start small.
You talk to trusted, same-level peers. You utilize industry data anchors like Glassdoor or LinkedIn. Because walking into a performance review with actual market data means you aren't asking for a favor anymore.
No, you are negotiating from a baseline of solid evidence, which leads us to the third forbidden conversation.
Right, so we avoid salary discussions because they are socially uncomfortable, but this next one scales up to something existentially uncomfortable.
With a spouse or an aging parent, the what happens if you die conversation.
Wills, life insurance beneficiaries, property deeds, healthcare proxies.
We avoid this because it forces us to look our own mortality right in the eye, and human beings are exceptionally good at avoiding cognitive dissonance.
But the systemic vulnerability created by avoiding this is just profound. The people who skip this conversation are the ones who discover at the absolute worst possible moment that their partner never actually signed the will.
Or that the house deed is structured in a way that triggers massive tax liabilities.
Oh, that's brutal.
Or, and this is a shockingly common administrative nightmare the author highlights, that a life insurance policy or pension is still legally set to pay out to an ex-spouse.
To force a partner to scramble for banking passwords and probate lawyers while they are actively drowning in grief is a profound cruelty.
Having the mortality conversation isn't morbid. It is one of the most fiercely protective, loving logistical acts you can perform for your family.
It is the ultimate act of care. You are basically organizing the lifeboats before the ship hits the ice. Okay, conversation number 4 pivots from existential fear back to social fear.
With a trusted friend. The I'm struggling conversation.
You know, thinking about the mechanics of this, financial shame is essentially a psychological infection.
That's a really good way to put it.
Isolating it just makes it spread faster. If you lock financial failure away in the dark, it thrives.
That is a highly accurate diagnostic. Financial shame relies entirely on isolation. When someone is drowning in consumer debt or completely failing to manage their spending, they almost always suffer alone.
Because admitting it feels like an unrecoverable personal failure?
But just like your infection analogy, isolation accelerates the disease. It leads to payday loans, hiding credit card statements, and lying to spouses.
But the inverse is also a reality. The friend who successfully negotiated a debt consolidation, the colleague who found a brilliant fee-only financial planner, those lifelines and roadmaps exist all around us.
But they remain invisible until you break the silence first.
Which brings us to the 5th and final forbidden conversation: And structurally, this might be the core of the entire issue.
It's the, this isn't working conversation you have to have with yourself.
Oh, the hardest one, the mirror.
Exactly. It's the moment you stop avoiding the cognitive dissonance. You sit down, pull up the actual dashboard of your life, the income, the outflow, the compounding interest, and you tell yourself the unvarnished truth.
Not the, oh, I'll tighten my belt next month, fiction.
No, the actual mathematical reality of what you are doing,
Hmm?
facing that truth with absolute honesty, but crucially without self-punishment, is really the only place where systemic change begins.
Okay, so we've mapped the minefield. We understand the 5 arenas of silence. But knowing you need to break the silence is paralyzing if you don't have a tactical framework.
Completely paralyzing.
How do you actually initiate these conversations without triggering a massive defensive fight or spiraling into a panic attack?
Well, the transition from theory to practice requires scaffolding, and the most effective tactical tool presented in the text is what is termed the money date.
The money date. I really appreciate the behavioral framing of this. It's pitched as the single most underrated financial tool.
And it's incredibly straightforward. 30 to 60 minutes, once a month, no phones, no distractions.
The mechanism of the money date works because it circumvents the amygdala hijack of a sudden, hey, we need to talk about money ambush, right?
Exactly. By scheduling it, you lower the stakes. You sit down and you simply review. You look at last month's actual spending versus the baseline.
You check the trajectory of the debt.
You look at the savings rate. And then you set one specific, achievable financial intention for the following 4 weeks.
The framing with a partner is vital here, though.
Yeah.
You don't walk into the kitchen waving a credit card statement like a prosecutor.
No, definitely not.
You frame it as a strategic team alignment. You say, I want us to have a totally clear picture of how we're funding our goals, and you have to bring your own numbers to the table.
This cannot be an interrogation of their spending. It has to be a mutual audit.
Bring your income, your hidden Amazon purchases, your retirement contributions, everything.
It normalizes the baseline. When discussing cash flow becomes a mundane, scheduled Tuesday evening activity, it strips the emotional volatility right out of it. It stops feeling like a crisis response and starts functioning like an actual partnership.
Alongside the money date, there's a rigid document checklist in the text. This is the financial permanent record every woman must know and possess. Let's run through these quickly.
Yes, because these are the legal choke points of modern life.
First, the will.
You must know exactly what legal mechanisms trigger in the absence of one. Second, full access and visibility to all joint and individual accounts.
Specifically including the ones your partner manages, right?
Yes, all of them.
Third, the actual mortgage or rental agreements, whose name is legally on the liability.
Fourth, the insurance stack. Life, health, income protection. Who are the listed beneficiaries and are the premiums current?
Fifth, pension and retirement details. You cannot wait until you are 64 to discover your retirement vehicle has been underfunded for a decade.
And finally, the annual credit report. You must pull this systematically. You need to view your financial permanent record before a lender or a crisis uses it against you.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, why is this specific checklist so unforgiving?
Because financial unawareness is not a minor administrative gap you can fill in when you finally find the time. It is a severe systemic vulnerability.
And life guarantees that it will exploit that vulnerability at the absolute worst possible moment.
A sudden death, an unexpected divorce filing, a corporate downsizing. The individuals who navigate those catastrophic crises with the least amount of collateral damage are the ones who possess the map before the emergency began.
So what does this all mean? We've covered vital terrain today.
A lot of ground.
We've dissected the cultural trap of comfortable ignorance, the compounding destructive cost of silence, the 5 specific conversations we engineer our lives to avoid, and the behavioral tools to finally have them.
The mandate for you, the listener, is incredibly clear based on this material.
Do 3 things this week. Schedule a 30-minute money date, pull your credit report, text a trusted peer to discuss industry salary benchmarks.
Just force 3 cracks into the silence.
And as you contemplate the friction of taking those steps, I want to return to a quote from Folake.
Oh, the woman whose husband hid the $34,000 in debt?
Yes, she eventually navigated her way out of that crater and rebuilt her life. But analyzing the wreckage years later, her insight was profound. She said, the debt was survivable. The hardest thing to forgive in him and in myself was the silence.
Wow.
She said, I had been afraid that asking questions would seem like distrust. I didn't realize that not asking was the thing that made me truly vulnerable.
That's incredibly powerful. Demanding transparency isn't paranoid, it isn't unromantic, it is the ultimate act of financial self-respect.
Now, establishing this transparency in your household is only the first theater of operation. Next time, we're going to dive into the teaser provided for Chapter 6, which tackles career strategy.
Looking forward to that.
Because if you are sitting at your desk, waiting quietly and patiently to be noticed and rewarded for your exceptional hard work, that is a career sacrifice, not a career strategy.
It's going to be a fascinating breakdown of workplace dynamics. But before we conclude, I want to leave you with a conceptual pivot to mull over, building on everything we've unpacked today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've spent this entire deep dive analyzing the harsh mathematical cost of silence. But I want you to consider the profound psychological weight of it.
The sheer mental bandwidth required to maintain the illusion, right?
Exactly. If you are expending your precious cognitive energy maintaining a facade of comfortable ignorance in your bank account, where else are you deploying that exact same avoidance strategy?
This is a tough question.
In your career trajectory, in your personal relationships, in the boundaries you fail to set.
Wow.
What other vast areas of your potential are you quietly starving of the truth, just to avoid a momentarily uncomfortable conversation? We started today by examining a financial reality that was nothing but a mirage. You have to ask yourself, is the temporary comfort of your silence truly worth the ultimate cost of your future?
Phenomenal question to leave hanging in the air. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.